If you think your company's brand is your own personal brand, you're already falling behind. People who become partners, directors, and thought leaders, these people start defining a personal brand for themselves early on and well before anyone else gives them permission to do so. In this video, I'm going to reveal the formula I've used to build a personal brand that's helped me make partner at a top law firm and break down exactly how to define a personal brand for yourself that can accelerate your career, whether that's in law, business, or any other professional field. Most professionals assume that their personal brand is the same as their company brand or just their job title, but that mindset keeps you invisible and replaceable. For example, I've seen really good associate attorneys who end up plateauing in their career because they think doing good work is all they need to do to move up the ladder and make partner and develop their career. In contrast, the people who rise fast intentionally shape how people perceive them and carefully craft their own narrative. In law firms, personal branding used to happen once somebody made partner. But now you have to have a solid personal brand to have even any hopes of making partner. And savvy folks, they start working on their personal brand well before they even become an attorney. So why do you really need a personal brand? It's because it acts as a career compass, guiding choices, attracting opportunities, and shaping how others are going to help you along your career path. Without a personal brand, you're letting others and blind luck take control. Now, managers and partners, they're not villains necessarily. They're not doing things intentionally to lead you astray and give you the wrong career path, but they're going to naturally do things that are going to benefit their practice and benefit the firm. So you need to take control of your destiny early on. Now, a personal brand also forces identity coherence, and that is the psychology principle that people subconsciously align their behavior with their internal narrative. So a clear brand narrative becomes a quiet engine that powers long-term career growth. Now, in my own career journey, I struggled for a long time until I solidified a good personal brand. I started out really just taking on work wherever I could, working with big companies, working with startups, working with inventors, really doing any sort of work that came my way. But it wasn't until I did enough work and realized that I loved working with inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups, and that's what I wanted to make my career, that I built a personal brand that really reflected that. Because initially I worked at a couple of large firms and I was kind of honestly embarrassed to be wanting to focus on inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups and really enjoying that kind of work, because a lot of people perceive big firms as being too good for small inventors or being too big for startups and those kind of clients. But once I kind of threw that aside and said, hey, this is what I want my career to be, and built that internal narrative that I'll kind of discuss later on, that's what was able to jumpstart my career, help me attract clients both externally and internally within the firm by like for instance, within the firm, telling people, hey, I focus on inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups. That's what I'm really good at. That attracted those opportunities within the firm. And by saying that externally, that attracted external clients as well. And honestly, that is what allowed me to really jumpstart my career and ultimately make partner at one of the top firms in the country. So where do you start with defining and building a personal brand? And the first thing is to envision the future you. Where do you want to be in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years? What kind of clients do you want to work for? What kind of work do you want to be doing? And what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? For instance, do you want to work at a big firm, one of the top firms in the country, and work with cutting edge top clients and work with a big team? Or do you want a practice that is kind of more chill, kind of like with what I have, where I have a patent practice and work with inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups, and maybe have kind of a smaller, more bespoke team, but kind of have more of a chill lifestyle? And you need to be honest with yourself about what your strengths are, what you're good at, and what you really, really want out of life. Make your goals your own goals, and don't do things because you think somebody else would see it as being prestigious or be impressed by it, or because you're naturally going to make a bunch of money doing this one career path. Honestly, the people who do well and don't burn out, they choose a career path that really suits them, that really works with their strengths, that they actually enjoy. Because long term, you're not going to do well if you force yourself into a career that really doesn't suit you. You're going to burn out and it's just not going to be sustainable. Now, what's the second step in building a personal brand? And that is crafting a brand narrative. Now, that is a combination of who you are now, who you are becoming, and who you want to become. Things like what makes you unique? What special skills do you have? And an exercise I like to use is coming up with 3 adjectives that would be used to describe you, that people would naturally describe you as, and things that you would want people to describe you as. These things should be authentic but aspirational. So for instance, it should be something that really naturally fits your persona, not something that is going to completely change your personality, something that just is not part of who you are, isn't natural for you, but it should be aspiring, something that you should naturally be able to grow into. Now, what this personal brand narrative does is it creates what is called internal alignment, and that is where your choices naturally start to match the story that you tell yourself. This allows you to make positive choices to move your career in a certain direction and to choose things that you want to do to move down that road. And almost as importantly, things you don't want to do to move in a certain career path. So to give you an example of an actual brand narrative, let me give you my personal brand narrative that I have come to over time that represents where I'm at now in my professional journey. So I like to see myself as a patent attorney who excels at patent strategy for inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups, who excels in communicating complex concepts to people who don't have a lot of experience, and also having excellent client service. So the example here is working with people who have no experience with the patent process or have very limited experience with it, and shepherding them through the process so they fully understand what's going on, they can engage with the process, and feel safe and secure in the decisions that they're making and the outcomes that they're getting. I also want to be seen as a thought leader in patents, business, technology, and career growth. And then for my 3 adjectives that I hope people would use to describe me, or that I want people to use to describe me, it would be enthusiastic, positive, and capable. Now take a moment to think about what your brand narrative would be, what your 3 adjectives would be, and put those down in the comments below. And if you're getting any value out of this video, take a moment to give it a like so it can get out to more people and help some other folks. Now there are several things that are going to be non-negotiables that have to be part of your brand narrative. And otherwise, the whole brand collapses without these fundamentals. And these are going to include quality work product, dependability, integrity, ownership and communication, and collegiality and client empathy. So let me kind of go through each of these one by one. So quality of work product is that you just have to do good work. That is the foundation of any good practice, of being any good professional. You cannot succeed if you don't have a good baseline of being able to do quality work. You also need to be dependable, and this is going to be dependable especially early on when you're working with partners or directors or other people. You have to be seen as being dependable. Otherwise, you can talk a good game, but you're really not going to be able to work up in the world and in your career. And this is also dependable when it comes to clients. Clients need to be able to depend on you. If they're going to put big decisions in your hands and big transactions and big deals in your hands, you need to be dependable. They need to rely on you to do these things. Otherwise, any great brand is going to just totally fail. You also need to have integrity, and that is just being honest with your clients and being honest with your coworkers, being honest with the people that you collaborate in a professional way. Long term, that is really going to plant the seeds to having a good career and being known as a good person who's going to attract clients and be able to work with other people well. In terms of ownership and communication, especially starting out when you're working with other people, whether they be partners or directors or people that are your bosses, you need to take ownership of the tasks that you are given. Don't just say, well, hey, I sent them an email and they didn't get back to me, and so whatever, I'm not gonna follow up, things like that. And honestly, with me, it took me a while to figure that out, but that is so important to be able to take personal ownership. And when you're doing that with your matters that you're working on with other people, people, they're looking at it as, hey, can I trust you with client work that you will be dependable if I give you direct contact with clients or I give you a client? Are you going to be dependable with them? Are you going to take ownership? Are you going to own these things and represent me and the firm well and represent yourself well? That's something that's really critical. And part of that is going to be communication. You have to communicate what is going on. If for some reason you're going to be late on something, you need to tell people up front. Communicate with the people that you're working with. And this is also true with clients. You need to take ownership of the things you're doing for your clients and communicate with them well. Understand what people understand in terms of communication and what they get about the process that you're going through. And for me, especially, that can be difficult because when I'm working with inventors, entrepreneurs, startups, they very rarely have any experience with the patent process. And so I have to be very, very good with my communication to let them know what is going on every step along the way so they feel comfortable and trust me and can make good decisions about what's going on. And in terms of collegiality and client empathy, you need to be able to work well with other people. Obviously, the people that you're working with, whether they are bosses or they are your colleagues, people like that, you're going to do far better if you work well with these people, if you're respected and they like you. And in terms of client empathy, you need to put yourself in the client's shoes. The place where a lot of attorneys fail is not thinking about the true needs of the client. Put yourself in their shoes. What do they need to make the decisions to be able to move forward, right? What are their pain points? What do they really care about? What are the true outcomes they're looking to get at from this work? And you need to serve those things. Have empathy for who those clients are. And that's why in a lot of ways, the people who have, say, like for people who work with startups, people who've been at a startup before, they do really well because they literally know what those people are going through. Or attorneys who have worked in-house at a big company, whether it be, say, like an engineer or at an in-house legal department, those people are invaluable when they come into private practice at a law firm because they know what's going on at those places. They know how the systems work. And so if you don't have that experience, do everything in your power to understand who these people are, who these clients are, and what their needs are, and what they're really going through on a day-to-day basis, because that's going to allow you to serve them way better. So these non-negotiables should be seen as a professional baseline. Without these things in place and having these strong fundamentals, any branding that you try to do is just going to be noise and you won't get any traction. So let me give you an example of what I see with some associates who I've worked with as colleagues or under me, that I supervise as a partner. And there are some people who, they are great people. I really enjoy them as people. They are super nice. They're really engaging. But when it really comes down to it, they're not dependable. They go MIA and you don't get any communication from them, and you ping them. Be like, hey, the deadline already passed. Like, what is going on here? You said you were going to have a draft for me. What's going on with this? Those people end up being worthless because as nice as they are and as nice as they can probably talk a good game and attract clients initially, they're not going to be able to have the fundamentals to really keep clients and make partners happy and make other people that they're working with happy. They're going to alienate people, right? And so you need to have those fundamentals. Otherwise, you're just never going to get anything out of branding. Now, one thing to understand about personal brands is that they evolve over time, and that's okay. You don't need to have a personal brand and keep that static. It needs to evolve as you do. And so let me give you the example of my story, where I came from. And my personal brand changed over time, for sure. So I started out in law school. I took the patent bar, which allowed me to become what's called a patent agent. So I could really practice patent law while I was in law school. And I had been in a band. I was very entrepreneurial. And so I started my own solo patent practice for a while, then joined up with another guy. We started a firm. We had offices downtown. And I loved being scrappy and being an entrepreneur and starting this business. And that was really part of my personal brand, is this scrappy entrepreneur who's starting a business, bringing on clients. And that's what I really loved. But over time, I realized that I didn't enjoy doing a lot of things like being my own IT person and doing accounting and having to deal with the drama of the business. I like the technical part of it. So in patents, you have to have a technical background. So for instance, I have an undergrad in biochemistry and molecular biology, a master's in electrical engineering. And when it comes down to it, I'm kind of a tech nerd. I like geeking out on technology. That's what I really like about the practice. So over time, I decided, as much as I initially kind of didn't like big firms and firm culture and I kind of fought against that, I realized that if I was going to really develop my practice and be able to focus on the fun technology part of things and really learn how to do patents the right way, I had to join a bigger firm. So I pivoted from having my own practice and moved my book of business to a boutique firm, and then ultimately to some of the largest firms in the country. And now where I am now, where I'm a partner in a top big law firm. So over time, my personal brand has evolved, and I've had to adapt to things that I learned. And like I said earlier, I had to learn over time that what I really love is working with inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups, and having to be true to myself about that and being honest about that. And it took some time and was difficult to do, especially being at a large firm where I think sometimes it's seen as maybe being below big firms to have small clients and work with inventors and startups and folks like that. But once I did that, that's what really allowed me to get traction and ultimately make partner. The key here is intentional evolution. Your personal brand should always be your North Star, pointing you in the right direction of your career path. But your brand should adapt as your ambitions and strengths become more clear over time. It's what guides every choice, every opportunity, and every next step in your career. You have to know who you are, what you stand for, and where you want to go. Your personal brand is your foundation, but your elevator pitch is how you project that brand to the world. So if you want to turn your personal brand into real opportunities, check out this next video where I break down how to build a killer elevator pitch that makes clients and decision makers remember you and want to work with you.